a couple times earlier in the program, but Jeremy Lin. Raise your hand if you ever heard of him before out there in Radio Land. I actually have, because SI did a piece on him when he was in his senior year at Harvard, because I think they just missed out on the NCAA tournament. I think they lost a playoff game his senior season to maybe 10, because they were tied and they don't have a tournament. But anyhow, he was an undrafted free agent last year. I think was released by 2 different teams this year. Knicks picked him up in December, sent him down to their D-League team where he had a game. He had a triple-double and just lit it up for their D-League team in Erie, Pennsylvania, I think it was. And this week has just taken Manhattan by storm. He scored 89 points in 4 games, all wins for the Knicks. Outscored Kobe Bryant last night. I believe he had 38. Jeremy Lin had 38 points compared. I think Kobe had 34, but had a miserable start. I think he was overall 11 for 29. I
Correct.
think the stat I read.
Lin was 13 of 23, so he was shooting 56.5%.
Yeah, he was making threes. He was making mid-range jumpers, rebounding.
He put somebody in a spin cycle.
Yeah, he did.
I was like, ooh, I didn't see that coming.
He's first Taiwanese to play in the NBA. It's just incredible story. I mean, I wonder, can he keep it up? He's Christian, so a lot of people are comparing him to Tim Tebow now, and I mean, what a run this guy is on.
You know who's smiling the biggest at this though? David Stern.
Oh yeah.
David Stern, his whole mission in life is global NBA dominance. So we'll have an NBA game in Taiwan next year. I guarantee the Knicks will play somebody in Taiwan next year. But I mean, it's awesome because the story is awesome. Undrafted. Only reason he got a chance to play is because of Carmelo and Amari and everybody getting injured. He gets his shot and he just takes over. But it leaves you at a conundrum. You know, it's like, what about when those other guys get back? What do you do now?
Right.
You know,
you play him if he's
shoot
like that. I mean, Carmelo. Welcome to my.
But
bench.
are those other guys gonna take away his chances?
Exactly.
But I mean, can they all coexist together? It'd be interesting to see. Louise. Good morning. How are you?
Oh, good to hear from you.
Yep. Welcome to the sports show. No, I did not. Oh. All right. And which one was that? Oh, I did. As a matter of fact, I must admit that prior to the Super Bowl, I did switch it on. My wife and I are big dog lovers, so I had to watch a little bit of the Puppy Bowl. And I will say, Louise, their halftime show is better than the real halftime show with the kitten bowl. Yeah. Yep. No, that's just a figure of speech. My little my little shtick. Thinking maybe somebody out there in Radio Land is going to hear that and say, "Hey, we like this guy. I like that sports bus concept." But I have not patented that yet, so perhaps I better. No, but you know, maybe I'll have to bring that up to the voice core board, and we can do a mobile show. Yeah, there we go.
The game day bus.
Sure.
Yeah.
We got to get recruiting on.
Oh yeah.
Ah, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right. Yep.
Yes,
we will get to that. Oh yes.
Wonderful, Louise.
Pitchers and catchers report in a week, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Week or two.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Louise.
Thank you.
Yep. Be well. Thanks.
Well, since you brought it up, I did want to touch a little bit on Urban Meyer and his recruiting practices, and then we'll get to the basketball game with Michigan State this afternoon. Something about the practice that Urban Meyer used to go out and talk to and actually get guys who had committed to other schools to then to change their minds and come to Ohio State just didn't sit too well with me. Leland and I were talking about it before we went on the air, and he was saying that one of the things he read, that if Meyer talked to one of the kids and they said, "Nope, I'm committed," that was it.
Goodbye.
It was goodbye. He didn't try to do his shtick with him. But if the kid said, "Yeah, I'll listen," so I mean that made a little more sense to me. But if you just take it and you see it in the paper that, oh yeah, Urban Meyer, this kid was committed to Wisconsin, but now Meyer's gone in and pulled him out from there, and now he's coming to Ohio State. It just, from a PR standpoint, it just didn't look good to me.
Well, you know, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
But it was funny because I was reading some of the SEC boards, and they got a good laugh about this whole gentleman's agreement, and they're like, this is big-time football.
Right.
Until that kid signs, he's open season. And it's funny because there's some truth to it. All the SEC coaches and teams, that's why you guys don't recruit well up there, because you don't go after the kids like you're supposed to. That's why if you look at the top 10 recruiting, there are 7 SEC teams and 2 Big Ten teams, and then there's not another Big Ten team until the 30s. And they're saying all this gentleman's agreements, and you're trying to be like the good old days. This is big time football. It's almost like corporate America. You know, if I'm in advertising and I want Doritos and Doritos is with another company, I'm not going to never ask them if they want to switch, because I wouldn't be doing a service to my company.
Right.
And that's what Urban Meyer's saying. My loyalty is to Ohio State and the state of Ohio. And it's my job to get the best players I can by any means I can, as long as it's within the laws, the rules.
Right.
And the whole gentleman's agreement, there was no gentleman's agreement within the other schools when they used Ohio State's probation against us to get those recruits to come. So a lot of, because most of the recruits that Urban Meyer got back were Ohio kids that those other schools came in and poached when we were down. And so for him to just let that go, I think is a disservice to Ohio State and Ohio State fans and the whole program.
Duffy?
Well, pretty much along the same lines. I have a problem with it. This isn't like, what's the difference between being engaged and being married? Because this isn't nearly as important even as being engaged. I mean, so what if he called them? I mean, you had a situation at Ohio State where the school's on probation, and all of a sudden now they've got Urban Meyer, who's the hottest thing in coaching. Yeah. And what's wrong with saying, hey, you know what, you really want to give up on Ohio State? I don't have any problem with him calling there. I don't have any problem if Ohio State got a 5-star recruit out of the state of Michigan. I don't have any problem with Hoke calling up and saying, you really want to go down there to Ohio? Why don't you come up here to us? You know, let us walk you around. Let us show you the law school. Let us show you everything. Blah, 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 blah. I don't have a problem with it until it's signed.
Right.
You know, Al, that means obviously that you're going to have to hire a whole bunch of assistant coaches, the assistant coach in charge of keeping the recruits. You know? But it's a competitive market, and we're talking now. I see where the Big Ten has said, hey, let's have a 4-team playoff and everything. I mean, this is something that's each school is going to try to get the strongest. Gentlemen's agreements are fine, but they're going out the window just like the concept of amateurism.
Right.
Yeah. So and the interesting thing about the playoff that Delaney and crew are proposing is that the semifinal games will be played on campus sites.
Yes.
Well, that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah. Oh, it does. We've talked about, or I've talked about that on the show before. Dan Wetzel of Yahoo Sports has been a big proponent of that all along.
Because one of their issues about not doing the playoffs is, oh, well, we're asking the fans to travel too much. Well, no, you're not. If you do it how the NFL does it, they don't put all their playoff games in a neutral site.
Yeah.
You play with the highest seed, and that, I mean, it was blatantly obvious that was the best way to do it because you'll always have your ticket sales. You're always going to get TV anyway, and then you put the other bowl games at neutral sites because they're always worried about eliminating that. No, you don't have to eliminate the other bowl games. You can play those other bowl games as well.
Yeah, they can do their thing and play to half-empty stadiums. And
like they do now.
Let me go back to the recruiting for just a moment then, and that is that there's a whole lot of hype about this, but when you stop and think about it, maybe 50% of the recruits actually amount to something in the college game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just like the drafts.
It's nice to get these highly talented, highly coveted folks, but there's absolutely no guarantee. I think you said it a couple of months ago. The Wisconsin team that was ranked 30th or 31st or something a few years ago, and they had, 3 or 4 offensive linemen drafted by the NFL? Remember that? I mean, it was just...
Yeah. Excuse me.
Yeah, you can't tell.
And I will say, how many weeks did Urban Meyer do this?
8.
Right.
So he had to hire a bunch of assistant coaches.
Yeah.
And in 8 weeks, he was able to go out and put together the number 3, 4, depending on somewhere in the top 10, based on which scouting service you want to look at. Got together an incredible recruiting class. Imagine what he can do next year when he has.
Right, because I mean, if you look at it,
if they have a good season, if they go 11-1 or something like that next year.
Well, he's already got 3.
He's got to show that he can win
for next year.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at what he's done, I will almost be more upset if he didn't do it, because a lot of those guys, once they seen that we were going to be on probation and we had the bowl bans, they didn't know what the coaching situations were going to be. Then you got the other schools coming in and they're like, well, look at Ohio State, they're not doing this and they're not going to be able to do that. And if as a coach, if you're recruiting, that's something that you should do. Hey, I've seen that you were interested in this. In any business that you have to try to retain a person or a customer, what was it that I did wrong that you didn't want to use my services? So if he didn't go and backtrack and do those things, I would look at him as less of a coach.
Yeah.
Anybody here ever in a traffic accident?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How many letters, how many cards, how many contacts did you have from attorneys in the next 48 hours?
Right. Right.
Okay. Another analogy to consider.
or now, like, how many people have car insurance, but I get something from a different insurance agency in my mailbox telling me to switch.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, you're a competitor.
Yeah.
And like I said, anything that you can do within the rules, you should do it, and that's just the way it goes. Those guys' jobs are on the line every year, especially at Ohio State. You don't have time to have a bad recruiting class, because if you go 6-5 for 2 years, they're going to fire you. So you got to do whatever you can to make sure that you get the kids in that can play.
And then once you get them in, like you said, play them. If you could play, we're not going to have any of that senior loyalty stuff. Who's ever the best player, they're going to be on the field. And, I mean, that right there is a lot, too, for a kid that, wants to come in and make a big splash, and once he get playing time, he's going to have a chance to actually come in and contribute to the team. So
sounds like another gentleman's agreement that's gone
right.
Yeah,
you're my seat. You've been here for 4 years.
Just like amateurism. Yeah. All right. You're listening to the Sports Show on Voice Core. I'm Brent Shepard, driving the big sports bus. We are parked in an unknown location. Rashad DuBose, Leland Bass, and Pat Duffy cheering along for the ride. Buckeyes take on the Spartans on the hardwood this afternoon, or actually this evening at 6 o'clock. Michigan State, 19-5 overall, 8-3 in the Big Ten. Ohio State, 21-3 overall, 9-2 in the Big Ten. So first place is on the line here. Do you think the Buckeyes come out and have a good game against the Spartans?
I feel much better because it's at Value City.
Home game.
This is, and I've said this for a couple of weeks now. It's a totally different team at home than it is on the road. So I think they'll be up. I don't think they were really up for the Purdue game, and I think that's their defense showed that they lacked intensity on D. I don't think we'll have that problem with Michigan State because it's a big game. It's a big opponent. It's a rivalry game. I think they're going to be ready to play. I think Value City will be rocking, and I think that's going to carry us. I do think it's going to be a good game. It's not going to be one of those 20-point Ohio State wins that we are used to seeing. But I think it'll be pretty comfortable. Somewhere 8 to 12-point win.
Duffy?
Interesting. I have found it so difficult to predict things. Of course, I'm lousy at it. I mean, if I say that Ohio State is going to win, you just might as well take your mortgage and put it on Michigan State. All right? I mean, I'm very bad at
Michigan
this.
State, man.
But yeah, exactly. But then if I do that, you know how this works.
Yeah, exactly.
So, no, to me, there's so much of an intangible factor. It has nothing to do with the crowd. It's just who's got the hot hand, who's going to be the Lynn, if you will, of the game today. Who's going to make 50 or 60% from the field as opposed to throwing up Kobe bricks.
Yeah. Or Buford bricks.
Or Buford bricks, or what have you. Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it's who's ever got that hot hand is going to be the team that wins the game. And you can play the best defense in the world. One of the things that fascinates me watching NBA games is how do you guard Kobe? Or any of the really great offensive players. I mean, you have a hand in his face. You basically defended him as best you can. He still does that fall away that you just can't stop.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's pure poetry, watching the great one shoot like that. So.
Yeah, the one of the frustrating things about the Ohio State basketball team this year, and I'll admit that I have not watched a lot of games. I've just, from what I've read the accounts about the games, is they're consistently inconsistent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never know from one game to the next who you're going to get.
Yeah.
Are you going to get the team that has one of the top defenses in the country, or are you going to get the team who plays defense like they did against Purdue?
Right.
Are you going to get the Buford that shoots lights out, or are you going to get the Buford that shoots bricks? Does Sullinger play the entire game, or does he disappear for a little bit? If I'm Thad Matta, that would concern me about how often that happens. That they are so up and down. I mean, they've been successful. Like I said, 21-3, but they're going to obviously make the NCAA tournament. But at this point in time, I'm not a believer that they're going to make a strong run in the tournament.
Get past the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Well, it depends, like you said, on which Buckeye team shows up that day. Because there are games when you see them play when they're clicking on all cylinders, where you're like, man, how's anybody? When they played Duke, it was just like, man, how's anybody gonna beat these guys? I don't know. Or when they played Florida or some of the other good teams and they just ran them out of the gym.
Or Indiana a couple of weeks ago.
When they play them at home,
obliterated them.
When they're clicking, and I heard one of the broadcasters say that when everything's clicking, this team is going to be hard to stop. But it's like you said, that consistency, and I don't know if that has to do with youth or pressure. I don't know, because Buford's not young, and he's probably the most inconsistent player on the team, and he's a senior.
Right.
So I'm not really sure if it's a confidence thing, I'm not sure. But there are some games where you can tell within the first minute of the game that they're ready to go and they're going to be there. And then there's some games where they come out and they just look lethargic and you don't know what's going on.
There is one senior and one junior on the entire Ohio State roster.
Yeah.
Freshman and sophomore.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
That can't explain it. That's for sure.
And they don't shoot free throws, except for
Yeah, that's what I was
Buford
gonna
does.
say.
They don't, and that tournament time.
That's
Between
Craft
free throws
needs
and
to
3-pointers.
Yeah.
You have those are two huge things that they have zero of on
And
this team.
I don't like that we don't have a set rotation. We don't know who the 6th and 7th man is. It's somebody different. Like against Purdue, J.D. Witherspoon was in like 4 minutes into the game. And then today, he won't play. Watch, you'll see. He won't even get in the game. You'll be like, what the heck happened? Or, I don't know where Jordan Cyber went. Sam Thompson's been getting a lot of the playing time. But and we don't put our big man in, the center, the freshman, Amir Williams.
Yeah.
Because we need a shot blocker, and we don't even play him.
Right.
We play him every now and then. It's like every 3 games we put him in for 5 minutes. But let the kid play. I don't understand what. We're winning by 20 points, and you still won't put them in.
They're going to need to be need to be physical this game, because that's Michigan State style. They're going to crash the boards, and Ohio State has to be willing to battle with them in order to be competitive in this game.
Or in the tournament, Lord forbid we play Kentucky again.
Yeah, that's going to be a wrap.
Oh my God, I don't even want to see that team, because we don't have anybody that can guard anyone on their team. And who's going to guard Davis? They got a 7-footer. And I thought Amir Williams, they were right comparably coming out of high school, and that kid looks like a superstar.
Yeah.
And Jared's he's going to block 100 shots against Jared Sullinger. We got to get our athletes out there. I don't know. Kentucky, man.
I just think they don't have enough of the pieces to win a game when everything's not going right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're not always going to be clicking.
Right,
That's
exactly. You have to be good when everything's not clicking. Yeah, it's great to say when everything's clicking, they're tough to
when
stop.
When everything's clicking, the little sisters of the poor are going to have a chance.
Right. But you need to have somebody when nobody's able to hit a shot that can get the ball and go create his own shot, get to the bucket, maybe get an and one or a tough layup, just to kind of break the monotony of coming down on a fast break, pulling up, shooting 3-pointers, and they're not going in.
That's supposed to be Buford.
That's what I thought it was going to be.
But that's what it's supposed to be. But he hasn't been that, like we were saying, consistently.
Right. Excuse me.
Another thing is the defensive effort as a whole. Sometimes they come out and they're playing great defense, but then they get lazy and lethargic. Like the other day on those high pick and rolls. They weren't even really trying to fight to even switch or get back on defense, and once it happened, the guy's going straight to the basket.
And we have no shot blocker.
shot blocker. So if we have that shot blocker that can come in and at least give a little bit of help defense, that kind of makes a difference. But I just think they need to get a certain system and play that type of basketball versus trying to switch it to be able to defend the other coaches' type of basketball that they play.
I'll put it this way. My bottom line is they're still ranked 3rd in the nation.
Yep.
Okay. I mean,
we'll take it.
I mean,
as Buckeye fans, we'll take that.
I'm not going to.
Well, no, we were just thinking.
Not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and the other thing.
No, I was just talking as far as March Madness comes around.
Right.
We get in the tournament time.
Well, and the thing is, anybody can just get incredibly lucky.
Right.
In those.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
the line on the game is the Bucks are favored by 10.5 today.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
You basically called it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, if they come out and play like they did against Duke, Indiana, they get that crowd behind them. You're right, Leland. They could really.
Yeah, the home games make a huge difference.
I can see it being close for most of the game, and then something happens, a couple and ones, a couple 3-pointers, and it's out of hand.
Real quick before we go, I was reading in Sports Illustrated before I came to the show today. Read an article about an Australian ultra runner by the name of Pat Farmer. He ran from the North Pole to the South Pole, 13,000 miles over 260 days, roughly average about 50 miles a day, consecutive days. Unfreaking believable.
Yeah.
I
don't want to drive 50 miles.
Rashad, Duffy, Leland, thanks for being aboard.
Thanks.
Stay tuned for an additional program on the Voice Corps. I am Brent Shepard, park on the bus.
I can see running through Kansas and Nebraska. Like running through up in Canada and the North Pole, and then you get down to Tierra del Fuego, and I'm crying out loud.
I read that, and I was like, well, do they literally mean North Pole, South Pole? So I Googled them when I got in this morning, and that's exactly what he did. They helicoptered him in to the North Pole.
Yeah.